This week on Overwatch This, we're talking about the recent Overwatch Open, speculation ahead of Halloween and BlizzCon, and some in-depth changes to Widowmaker on the PTR. Hello and welcome to episode 2 of Overwatch This. I am not Joel, our usual host, I am Phil, but I am joined by Ben.
Hello, I'm still here.
Yeah, there is some semblance of familiarity here. Ben, what's been going on with Overwatch this week?
Overwatch this week?
Overwatch this week.
Oh, we should have called it that. Oh, no, right, the whole thing's cut. Okay, so what's been going on this week is we've just had a big tournament.
Has it been the biggest Overwatch tournament yet? Certainly in terms of prize pool, right? Yeah,
like in terms of prize pool, in terms of like the amount of attention on the game, in terms of like the size of the production company doing it. I know that sounds like a very weird thing to specify, but it took a long time for esports to get to the point where they were being broadcast by networks like TBS, and that's who was running the Overwatch Open that happened last weekend. It was running out of the same studio that does E-League, which is the company that runs very popular CSGO tournaments. And they are broadcast on TBS on an American network. The Twitch broadcast, in fact, only had like the game on it.
Yeah.
And in the breaks where they were talking on a panel and so forth, that stuff was only on American television. You had to tune in. You had to be paying for the network or however that works over in the States. So yeah, in terms of that, in terms of the $300,000 that were up for grabs, it was the biggest tournament we've ever had.
It was a big deal, and presumably everyone involved in the production would have been quite happy that we got quite a surprise result with Misfits taking the overall championship, right?
I would think so, yeah. Like Misfits are an European team, but they weren't one of the favourite European teams coming in. You probably would have given that, as we talked about last week, to either Reunited or Rogue, who were recently picked up by Steve. How's it pronounced?
Steve Aoki.
Aoki.
Yeah.
That's why Phil is here.
That's my job.
He knows DJ names, and thank goodness for it. Yeah, they were recently bought out by him, and you know that doesn't happen unless you're a big team that's likely to win tournaments. You don't get bought out even by DJs or anyone else.
I've never been bought out by any DJs, so
and you've never won an Overwatch tournament.
Exactly.
And neither have I. And same story, exactly. So yeah, you would have expected one of those. If an EU team was going to win it, it would have been one of those two, or you would have expected the US team, Envious, who are a big, like, they have a CSGO team. They've been around for ages.
That's right.
I think they had a COD team. I think that's where they started.
They've been unbeaten since Gamescom, apparently.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, there you go.
Going into it, yeah, I think a lot of eyes were on them to deliver the goods. I also heard that Misfits had 2 sort of last-minute replacement players drafted in. And so all the more impressive that they managed to deliver the goods with sort of scrambling around and phoning people up at the last minute.
Have any of you ever played Overwatch? Just asking the crowd, I think, was worth it. No, yeah, and like, honestly, I watched the games last night from the finals, and it wasn't, they didn't like completely destroy them, but in the games that Misfits won, particularly early on, they dominated. Like, they really made it look like they were playing a different game. They were running strategies that were consistent and powerful. Their players were just making plays that just like, oh wow, okay. As you're seeing on screen right now with the footage that was kindly provided by E-League and Face It, they really, really took it to Envious, and they made themselves look like a really strong team. And I would be surprised, honestly, if they're not also bought out by one of these companies looking to get into Overwatch as the next big esport over the next 3 or 4 months.
So it was definitely an exciting match, but was it easy to actually follow what was going on? Is the infrastructure there yet to sort of broadcast these matches in the best possible form?
It's interesting. So that at the moment, Blizzard are developing a spectator interface.
Yeah.
So we're not currently running on something that was ever designed for an esports perspective, I think. It was designed as a stopgap, as something that could be used for this. But it is difficult to follow what's going on. Like, I know the game pretty well. You know, I've been playing it for like well over a year now, if you take beta and all that into account. And it is still like, oh wow, what's going on? Like, nobody uses any skins because that would just complicate it further, right? And if you're a new person or someone who hasn't played the game or hasn't played loads of the game, you know, you just put in a couple of hours every so often, you know what all the characters are, following it is going to be really, really difficult. And part of that also comes down to the way that it's played. Like, everything is just like, nobody goes in one at a time because obviously you want your whole team with you so you can do as much damage as possible. And fights pretty much center around whoever loses somebody first is very likely to lose that fight and not be able to do anything for the next 30 seconds while their team respawns and gets everyone back to the point where the fight is happening. So it's very easy for a spectator to be like, oh, let's watch this, what this Tracer is doing, because, Tracer's quite an interesting character to watch. Moves around a lot of skill involved. And then whatever it is, like the key moment of the fight happens over the other side of the map, or over the other side of the room that the fight is going on in, behind 3 layers of particle effects and explosions, and you just have no idea what happened. And part of that comes down to a lack of tools at the moment, which, as we said, Blizzard are developing, and we'll probably see those at BlizzCon, as we'll talk about in a few minutes. But also it comes down to a lack of experience on the part of the spectators. And this isn't me being like, oh, those spectators were so bad. Everybody would be bad at this. Like, nobody knows what they're doing yet.
Yeah, inherently there's an issue with the pace of the game as well, right? Like, CSGO casters have a bit of downtime to explain what's going on, and the combat itself is just that bit slower. Overwatch, I've also been playing since the full version launched. I watch it being played at the top level, and it's almost, particularly like Genji's, right? Like, it's almost impossible to see what they're doing. Like, they're moving, the viewpoint is changing so quickly. I don't know how you would commentate on that. So what can Blizzard do to actually fix this to catch up with their competition?
It's difficult. I expect that is a conversation that they're having, daily, in terms of what they can provide and what esports organizations can do. I think part of the problem comes down to this idea that whenever a new esport comes out or a new game comes out, there's always like this 6-month period, a year period, where commentators, either they're instructed to do this or they feel they have to do this, where they want to explain everything on them, where they want to be like, oh, here's how this ability works, or etc. And honestly, like, if you're interested in watching the game, either you already know that or you'll be able to work it out from what you're seeing. Now, Overwatch, like we said, is probably honestly like one of the hardest games to watch in the world at the moment. Like, it's like Dota 2, but without that perspective, that overhead perspective. It's that speed and with that amount of stuff going on all at once,
but in dizzy first person.
Yeah, right? Exactly. Yeah. And then even if they try and pull back and show like a room, then sometimes they can miss stuff because it's not all locked into that area. And different places have roofs. Like, the maps aren't designed to be viewed from overhead; they're designed to be interesting places to move around in. So you can't just get like an overhead camera and be like, oh, there everybody is, and have a nice perspective like that. So it's difficult. I think we'll see going forward. Hopefully there'll be more, like, commentators will work out what they need to be talking about. Spectators will realize, oh, we need to be focusing here or here. And hopefully also, as the play improves and as strategies become more understood and more predictable, people will be able to follow stuff easier, and also therefore it will get more interesting because the camera will 95% of the time be in the right place to see the cool stuff going down. And as Blizzard also develop the game as an esport, realize what's broken, or realize how to push stuff towards something that is fun to play and competitive, as well as being enjoyable to watch, will get a game that is easier to watch and more fun to do so.
So Halloween is almost upon us. It's early October as we're recording this, so not long until what you'd imagine would be an inevitable Halloween content drop from Blizzard. What are your thoughts, Ben?
I think unless Blizzard have dropped the ball in a fashion that is extraordinary, there will definitely be some Halloween skins put into the game. There's been teasers of them in the game before. There's like some photos you can find on some of the maps of Mercy dressed up like a witch and a few other characters in Halloween-like garb, from like the idea of, oh, there must have been a party at Overwatch HQ at some point in the past, like when everybody was together. But since those have been in the game, and basically for the last year since the game came out, people have been saying, hey, we want these. So unless Blizzard have been ignoring that, and also haven't done their usual thing of teasing stuff months in advance with those pictures, like always intending to make these skins, then I would expect that sort of thing is going to come out. When exactly it'll happen, that's kind of anybody's guess at this stage. There is a patch on the PTR at the moment.
Yeah.
I was kind of expecting it to come out yesterday. It's Wednesday as we're recording this. It didn't happen. It looks like they consider that still needs some more touching up, some more changes. But when that drops, I would expect it to come with these skins. and I expect that those skins probably won't need any testing, so they'll kind of be a surprise portion of that skin of that patch itself.
Right. It wouldn't be very Blizzard to put out a press release announcing that this will be out in 3 days. It's just going to happen, right? It's just going to drop.
Yeah, it'll come out on a Tuesday as usual. There will probably be a post on the forum, like Kaplan will be like, "Oh, the patch is coming today, by the way," like 2 hours before it drops. But they won't
he loves
say
having that power in the forums.
He absolutely does. But they won't say it's got these skins in it. They look like this. The first you'll see of those is when you log in, or hopefully if you check our YouTube channel, we'll have them up as we usually do, little previews of them and all the ones that are added. Exactly how many there'll be, not exactly positive. Usually they add around like a dozen or so across a bunch of different rarities, a couple of legendaries, a couple of epics, and then some slightly simpler, rarer ones.
I'm trying to think of what skins I can see Bastion as Frankenstein somehow.
That's happening. I think you've nailed that.
Seems to. I'd be particularly excited to see that. Widowmaker is sort of already a Halloween-looking thing.
She kind of has like 3 or 4 that would already apply. I think
this is why I don't design skins for Blizzard games. If you have any great ideas for Halloween skins, let us know in the comments below. Also coming up at the end of October is BlizzCon. Ben, I know you're very excited about that.
Yes.
What can we expect? Like, have there been any leaks beforehand? What sort of speculation is circling the rumor mill at the moment?
Yeah, so it all kicks off. It's the first weekend of November. It'll be Friday. I think it's the 4th, something like that. The Friday and the Saturday. Dates on our off purview. We just move day to day with Overwatch. We're a happening YouTube podcast.
We live by the day.
Exactly, on the edge of our seats. So BlizzCon is happening. There will be something for every Blizzard game there. There always is. What exactly that will be, we don't know now. Generally, there's 2 points where we find out stuff beforehand. The first is the schedule is revealed. At that point, people like me speculate on what is there without making any kind of definitive statements, because a schedule can only reveal so much. But that will show us what games they're focusing on this year, how much attention is being paid to Overwatch versus World of Warcraft versus Hearthstone versus Diablo, etc., etc. And also if there are bits of the schedule that look out of place, such as in 2014 when there was a massive gap in the schedule just after the opening ceremony, it will be possible to speculate that there is something big happening that's unannounced, that's like a new game or something along those lines. After that, but probably like a day before the actual show happens, there is pretty much always a leak of some kind. Either a retailer reveals something that they shouldn't have a couple of hours beforehand, or something just gets out of Blizzard HQ. They're a lot tighter than something like E3 is. Like this E3, we knew like the entire schedule of Ubisoft's press conference an hour before it happened. That was very useful to me and you, who were trying to cover that at 3 a.m. But I doubt Ubisoft were too happy about it. And Blizzard, usually that kind of thing doesn't happen. Like, we don't know exactly what it's going to be for. We won't have a list of all the new StarCraft changes and what they're going to say about World of Warcraft and all the rest of it. But if there's something that is going to be sold, then that is a point where retailers can accidentally spoil it. And equally, if it's something they want to advertise heavily, it's something that they might have sent out to ad companies and other and all sorts of websites that display ads on their front page, and that sort of thing can leak. We saw that with like the beta that happened for, and last year we found out about the way that the game was going to be sold about a day beforehand because retailers leaked that. So depending on what they reveal, which we'll talk about in a second, it's possible we'll find some stuff out before the actual show itself. Now, as for what it will be, and again, this is all speculation, but most of it is kind of informed, I would expect kind of the full blast. So we'll get a new character, expect that to be Sombra, and for our usual Sombra update, nothing's happening.
Where the hell is Sombra?
Nowhere. She's about 75% from this morning's check on her website, which is still counting down roughly towards the end of the month and the start of next month. So yeah, I'd expect her to pop up. I'd also think that we would maybe get a map. I would say of all the possible things we could get, like, there's basically a map, a patch, skins, and a character. I would say a map is probably the least likely, just because we got one recently. But BlizzCon's their big show. It will have been like about 6 to 8 months since the game came out. The first kind of major, like, here is everything we can do that's new, please come buy our game or try our game again. I would expect them to go whole hog on that. and therefore, there would be a new map along with a new character, probably like her home or her, something to do with her,
right?
That ties into the whole lore aspect.
And you're still feeling confident, speaking of maps, that the map editor won't be announced this year, but probably 2017?
Yeah, I don't think it's something that they're ready to talk about yet. And beyond, a post on the forums by Kaplan,
sure,
or a part of an interview where he might go, oh yeah, this is something we want to work on, but we need to get all this other stuff out of the way first. What we'll definitely see is that spectator interface that they're working on. I expect they'll use that for the World Cup tournament that they're going to be running. They'll use that to debut it. They'll have set all their spectators up with it beforehand so they can really show off what it can do. And that should be really interesting as well.
By the way, Blizzard, if you do have just a big list of all the things that you are about to announce, that'd be super handy. Just going to throw it out there.
It's just Ben or Phil at pcgamesn.com. That's fine.
That'd be wonderful.
Send that over to us. And beyond that, I expect we'll see another animated short as well. It's been a little bit of time since the Bastion one. That one went down really well. A, because it was great.
Yeah.
But B, because
production values are always enormous.
It is absolutely crazy the amount of quality they managed to get out in these cinematics that they do in-house with their own team.
Yeah.
And yeah, they said that was the start of a new season. That they very specifically said this is season 2 of the animated shorts. Season 1 ended when the game came out. So I would expect to see a new one of those. Whether that will have something to do with Sombra or not, we'll see at the time. That kind of depends exactly what position she holds within the greater kind of wider lore that they're trying to tell. We're also getting into the point now, and this kind of goes back to another thing we were discussing last week with Chris Metzen leaving, of them needing to actually tell the story of Overwatch as a whole. They're going to start releasing, there's a graphic novel coming out fairly soon. I would expect that to have some amount of presence at the show as well, but I would also expect that whatever short we get, or whatever information about the story we get, starts to actually tell kind of a coherent story, a new kind of timeline, and begin to develop whatever it is that they've decided they want to talk about.
I'm going to put you on the spot here. Is the graphic novel being handled in-house? It seems like Blizzard are the sort of company who'd want everything done. Yeah,
as far as I know, it's written by the writers of the game.
Okay.
Chris Metzen and Michael Chu are the two foremost ones. Obviously, Metzen's now left. Michael Chu's the one who we had an interview with around launch, and he does a lot of the story posting stuff on the forums, like when people ask questions about story. I don't know if they are specifically the authors of that,
right?
But yeah, it's being handled in-house. Presumably they probably freelanced some of the art to a graphic novel designer.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And as BlizzCon actually does happen, you can find out everything that's going on either by checking back here, where there'll be videos aplenty, no doubt, or you can go on pcgamesn.com for the latest. Right, time now to dive into the PTR, and the community has discovered something pretty interesting about Widowmaker. So talk us through that, Ben.
Yeah, so the PTR is still going on. There hasn't been any major changes since last week, I don't think. There was actually a patch deployed to the main servers that did some stuff to do with when you leave a game, how long you're allowed until you can come back, and how much that punishes you and all the rest. But on the PTR, there's been this kind of debate going on surrounding Widowmaker, about how long it takes her to charge a shot when she zooms in.
Okay.
And we're talking, so this isn't like somebody's gone, hang on, this is taking 5 seconds and it should be taking 3 seconds. We're talking about someone saying, oh, this is taking 1,500 milliseconds when it should be taking 1,250 milliseconds. And even down to the point where they were like, oh no, wait, this is taking 1,250 milliseconds and it should actually be taking 1,200 milliseconds. Yeah, so we're talking about, half seconds, and people have been taking, this isn't something that people are noticing with the naked eye. It's them going, hang on, this feels off.
This is frame by frame analysis.
I can't tell how this is off. And then they're getting video of it, and they're doing frame by frame, and they're literally counting frames and going, okay, it's taking this long and it should be taking that long. There's a massive thread on the PTR bug report forums, and if you go and have a look on those forums, you'll find it right at the top. Usually it gets quite a lot of replies, and it's kind of the most popular thread on there at the moment, where Jeff Goodman, who is the principal designer, I believe is his actual title, but basically he does the classes. He decides...
The class man.
Yeah, he decides how much damage a shot does and how much AoE is on an explosion, etc., along with his team, I'm sure. He's been replying and he's been saying, okay, so we looked at all this data you've given us, and they dug into the script to check what's going wrong with Widowmaker, and they found that the first shot of every single match that you play as Widowmaker, when you first charge in, will take 0.1 seconds longer to get to fully charged.
Well, I never.
Well, try to control yourself, Phil. I realise this is
I knew there was something off with
bit of
Widowmaker.
information.
That's why I never play as her.
Exactly. So they noticed that, but that wasn't what people were complaining about. People were saying that every single shot, there was a problem of that sort of magnitude, that it was taking longer for her to charge up than it should.
Right.
And that is actually a fairly big problem. Like, she is a character that the only thing she does is kill people, and like kill them with one shot when she's fully charged. She can pretty much take out, I think it's basically everyone except Roadhog and Diva, and maybe Reinhardt as well. So it's important that she be able to put out as much damage as she's meant to be. So people are naturally worried about it. And she's not a character that gets a lot of play. At the highest level of play, at the Overwatch Open, I think she was picked like 1 total time.
Right.
That's not very many.
Yeah,
like,
for a sniper as well,
yeah.
you know.
You would expect her to be quite good. Like, you know, she can take out characters and just, you know, they are dead, they are gone. And as we were discussing, Overwatch competitive play centers around killing one character so you are ahead, and then your 6 can beat their 5 a lot easier. So you would expect her to be quite good, and because of, you know, various intricacies of the game, and perhaps Blizzard wanting to shy away from the idea of a sniper being very, very good and the idea of camping, she's not quite as good as people think she should be. So people who love that character, and that, you know, Overwatch is a game that people attach themselves to character, and they decide, oh, I really want to be really good at Mercy, I really, really want to be good at Widowmaker. So when there is one character that people feel there are problems with and that their playstyle matches, they get worried about it. So these guys kept coming back to Jeff and saying, no, look, this isn't the problem we're having. Jeff discovered another problem, which was that the patch notes had listed 0.3 seconds as a scope in time, when it was actually, wait for it, 0.33 seconds.
Well, that's ruined then.
It's doomed, isn't it?
That's absolutely ruined.
And they think that might actually be the problem, is people were expecting it to take so long to get scoped in from where you're holding a gun normally to get to the scope point. It was actually taking slightly longer, which it's meant to. That is where it's meant to be.
Sure.
And therefore, the full scope in and charge time was taking too long. So, all of that is very, very detailed. But what's interesting about it is the community went and they did, like, you know, this isn't something that happens with normal games.
No.
Like, you know, outside of the biggest EA Sports titles and the biggest esports, this just isn't something most people would worry about. Particularly, you know, in a single-player game or something, that's just not something you care about. Oh, it's taking...
No one's doing frame-by-frame analysis in, like, the single-player of COD.
Yeah, nobody's bothered that Hitman walks like half a second slower than he's meant to from one end of a room to another. So, you know, people were passionate enough about it to do that. And then Jeff Goodman came in and said, okay, we found this problem. And people were like, no, that's not the problem. And he went back and he checked again and went, okay, maybe it's this. And now it's possible it's been solved. It might not have been. It's an ongoing story. Hopefully next week, when the patch launches, we'll maybe have a little more information on that, and we'll know exactly how it ended.
And in the long term, the proof of the pudding will be in competitive play. If we see her usage rate increase in the very top level, then we'll know that 0.3 versus 0.33 has been resolved to a level where the pros are willing to pick her up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and these changes came about because she is being buffed on the PTR.
Yeah.
They are trying to make her a little stronger. It's a very minor buff that's intended to make it so she can kind of have a lot more spatial awareness. By scoping in and out more.
Sure.
And therefore, this is very, very important. Like this bug, if it is there, is very, very important because they want, like, the pro level of play is intended that she will scope in and out all the time. So if that first charge shot is taking longer than it should, that is a significant problem. So yeah, if the patch comes out and we see her at the World Cup or at tournaments that are happening before the end of the year, there's 2 or 3 more Premier tournaments that are planned, not quite on the same level as the Overwatch Open. But with, you know, significant 6-figure prize pools, then yeah, we'll know that this was very successful.
That about does it for this episode of Overwatch This. Join us next week where we'll have some patch changes to talk about and hopefully some further developments ahead of BlizzCon.
There were small tweaks made to her because her win rate was exceptional at one point, and they halved the power of her shields that she can give out to allies.